What if the skills you thought belonged to one chapter of your life turned out to be the foundation for your wildest dreams? Imagine standing in front of a classroom one day and behind the camera the next, redefining not just your career, but how you measure impact and success. That's exactly what today's guest, Daniel Wakefield, has done. His journey from high school science teacher to headshot photographer, coach, and entrepreneur is proof that stepping into the unknown can uncover extraordinary possibilities. Welcome to Beyond the Quo. I am your host, Stacey Luces, and this podcast is all about stepping beyond the quo, breaking boundaries, and inspiring leaders to embrace authentic transformation. Today's guest is Daniel Wakefield. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
Yay. Once a high school science teacher shaping young minds, Daniel now helps executives and entrepreneurs shape their personal brands through his company, Top Tier Headshots. Beyond photography, Daniel empowers creatives and entrepreneurs as a coach, speaker, and soon-to-be author. Can't wait to dig into that. And he's here to share his inspiring journey with all of us and offer actionable strategies on building momentum, tackling self-doubt, and creating a legacy on your own terms. So let's dive in. Daniel, again, thank you for coming and making the drive down here to chat with me. So I love teachers. Let me start with that. I think they're probably one of the most underrated professions in the entire universe. And I remember specifically a couple of teachers in my life kind of really recharting the course of my young mind, whether it was a conversation or does anything kind of, before we segue into like your new way of being, what do you miss about teaching? Or is there one specific student that stands out in terms of like an impact they had on you?
That's a great question. I mean, definitely there are aspects of teaching that that I miss, and when you can really reach beyond just you need to study for this test and stuff like that, but really kind of inspire somebody and help them to have what I call light bulb moments, where it's like, I get it, and it's
and you see it behind you. Literally see it.
You absolutely do.
Yeah.
It just changes even just the way that they look, and so that is something that was very inspiring to me. I don't know if I remember a specific student per se. Definitely classes that I taught, and even this one semester that I had where I taught multiple classes in what was called an alternate school in a city. Back up in Canada where I'm from, and that entire small school was for at-risk students who were at risk of dropping out of school, kind of a last-ditch effort to help them stay in school, get their education.
What grade was this? What
it was high school, and it was a variety of grades, but it was kind of doing a bunch of stuff together. But I taught math and science in that context, and it was eye-opening about the challenges some of them were facing on the family level, personally, things like that. And just the light bulb moments in those kids and then a couple of years later, after I had gone back to the main high school and was teaching there again, some of those kids transitioned back to the main school, and I got to see them graduate, which was like...
That's so fulfilling.
I wasn't like their teacher for everything, but it was just so cool to see, like, I had even just a small part in helping them succeed. So, yeah.
I really love that. One of the things that shocked me, so 44% of high school teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years, often due to burnout or lack of support. And before you made kind of this big pivot into doing something totally different and I'll talk a little bit about what lessons you have brought from being a high school teacher into your new career, what kind of led you to leave the classroom and start Top Tier Headshots?
It was multifaceted. It wasn't just one thing, but I think that part of it was... So my wife Bethany and I, we have 4 kids.
Okay.
And
how old are they?
They're all pretty young, so they're ages 3 through 10.
Okay.
So pretty young still, and she's at a place in her life where she wants to be a stay-at-home mom. We're actually homeschooling them right now, and so if we were going to make that a possibility, teaching just wasn't an option from a income standpoint.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but teachers just don't make that much money. And especially in a place like South Florida, that's, cost of living is not cheap either. Yeah. It led me to start thinking about some other ideas, other potential career opportunities. Really just started out doing photography as a hobby because I enjoyed it, and then started to think about, I wonder if I could do this kind of as a side hustle, makes a little extra money on the side, and then eventually, could this be a career?
That's the way it started for me too. I did personal styling and branding on the side. A lot of my corporate gig type work, so I work for Homeland Security and very military-esque organizations, and to the point where I missed color. It was very gray, black, tan, neutral, very straight-laced colors. And my foray into something a little bit more feminine and a little bit more creative segued, much like it seems yours did, into turning what was like a passion or a hobby into something that you grew to monetize. For listeners, and a lot of what I talk about is living authentically and redefining success. Those are two things super important kind of to me and in kind of the guests I try to curate. And of course you fit that bill, but walk listeners through kind of the behind the scenes thinking a little bit about how you go from conceptually something you enjoy doing as a hobby or, with your kids maybe or your wife into, okay, let me strategize and let me figure out kind of how to monetize that. I feel like the status quo for a lot of us is the comfort zone and the leap of faith, right? The crazy foray into entrepreneurship is what stops people because to some people it's a canyon filled with alligators. We're in Florida, so I had to throw that in here. And to some people it's an adventure, right? Yeah. It depends on your mindset. Yeah. But walk us through a little bit about kind of with 4 kids specifically. That's a huge, courageous thing. Like, walk us through that thinking for you and your wife, because I'm sure she had comments.
So a couple of things. One of them is that, to be honest, a lot of that thinking kind of happened as we went. And I love that. We didn't. It evolved
along with you.
It evolved, and I feel super blessed that just certain people were put in our path that became mentors that really helped with the process because I didn't really understand entrepreneurship. I had a camera. I was pretty good with it. I had actually been had some of my wildlife work published, which I was super excited about.
For sure.
And was very validating. But how do you turn that into a sustainable and profitable business? Yeah. I wasn't really sure. And I got connected with some people that were doing it full time, who I started to pick their brain and find things out. But I didn't really know at the time. And it was kind of a bit of a leap of faith. And I probably wouldn't advise other people to do it the exact same way. Yeah. We did have a little bit of a kind of safety net at the beginning. Bethany was working part-time as a nurse. Yeah. So we had some income. But then the interesting thing was, I think 2 months into the business starting, we found out she was pregnant and we weren't planning on it. Yeah. We're thankful for it, but not planning on it at that time anyways. And so all of a sudden it was like, and to add on top of that, she got pretty sick with that pregnancy, much more than the other ones, and had to stop working. And all of a sudden it was like, I have to make this work. Like there's no safety net anymore. And so it just kind of forced me to really try to figure out, well, how do I do sales? How do I do marketing? How do I network? What do I, like somebody had told me that LinkedIn was a really great place to network. Well, how do I do that? What are all the things that I should do? So the thought process really wasn't there. It was I had a camera. I was good with it. And I knew that I could use it to make money. And I started. And then it was, darn, I got to figure some stuff out really fast. Right. And so that was kind of, I don't recommend that other people do it that way, but it really threw me into it. Yeah. And there was a pressure of, I have to make this work. Yeah. That led me to really push me outside of my comfort zone.
I really love this. So a couple of observations. I like to extrapolate like meat from like the gravy, right? I feel like even though it was happenstance for you, or even though you kind of fell into it, a couple of things stood out. One, I think you remain curious about the process instead of
100%,
being intimidated by, oh my God, now I have to learn how to be a marketer, a social media strategist, a networker, right? So remaining curious about the process. Two, I hear you say you found people. And I love the concept of staying curious with people, because even if it's not the right person for where you are and what you need, that connection is one or two conversations away.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And the other thing I believe is, and I had to do this myself when I quit my job and like walked away because of my health, because I would have died. Like literally, it was that bad. I think this concept of that fire under you, in this case, your wife and her health issues, and having no freaking choice is the, fight or flight. And I think finding that inner grit and that inner determination comes to us in different circumstances. And I often say, even to clients when they come to me and they are at their lowest points, that's when you can find some sort of resoluteness about what it is you want to do, what you want to pursue, and you get resourceful. It's not a matter of having the right resources, because clearly you were like, right? But it's being resourceful. I love that about this story.
Yeah. And, it's what I find among creatives typically is they're really, really good at their craft. They're good at the creative side of things, but then tell them, okay, now you have to go and sell this. And they're like, I don't know what to do. And there was a part of me that was like that. I'd never had a sales related job before. And the book that I'm writing, I've got
that laugh says it all.
The book that I'm writing, and I've got a chapter on what I learned about sales conversations, and I start the chapter with the very first time somebody called out of the blue. I had put my business on Google. The phone number was on there. Very first time I remember, I think I was driving to the gym or I was driving somewhere, and my phone rang, and I picked it up. And it was somebody.
Were you just like, hey, this is Daniel. What's up, man?
I wasn't expecting anything. And
I'm sure you didn't say this is top tier,
No, I did not. And then it was somebody inquiring, like wanting to know how much headshots were, and I panicked.
Did you gulp? I would gulp.
I probably gulped. I was like trying to remember things, and I knew what my pricing was, but I was very kind of like almost apologetic about the pricing.
Oh my God, I want to pull the thread on that, but yes.
And there were just a lot of awkward pauses, and it was very short. And I actually wrote like my memory of how the conversation went in the chapter.
Yes.
Because I wanted to show like, we don't all know. No. We're not experts when we start. You start and you're probably going to be really bad at it.
Yeah.
And then you learn.
Yeah.
You do it and you grow. And that was one of the things. And again, coming back to the people, the connecting with people, there were some people in my life. One of them is a sales leader at a big software company. And we were, friends. And I said, can I take you out for lunch and just pick your brain about some sales stuff? And so we got to lunch, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, how do I have a sales conversation? Because I don't know. And he just kind of very, patiently, smiled and said, okay, well, let's just think about your offer and what you have and how you're going to help people and things like that. And then that plus the practice. And
this reminds me, if when Eminem was on 8 Mile and he choked right before making the big move. I would say for me, kind of a similar thing happened. I'll try to say this without like getting emotional, but my friend Rachel was a master salesperson and unfortunately passed in October from cancer. And I remember I had a big speaking engagement with a couple hundred people. And like you, I had put a lead magnet out, and one of it was it's kind of 10 questions to see if you are, burning out. And if you get more than 7 right or something, like, call me. Right? Hey, maybe call me. And I delivered it virtually, I would say about 3 p.m. my time, which was noon their time. It was on the West Coast. And, went about my business, picked up my son from school, took him to jiu-jitsu, like just had a normal evening, right? I get home, it's like 7 p.m. I'm waiting for my husband to come home, and I sit outside with a glass of wine because I had had a day. And I'm sitting out there waiting for him. I was like, oh, let me check my email. Daniel. There were 80 emails.
What?
And my calendar was booked through, I think, for 2 months. And I remember like wanting to spit the wine out. Like I felt like a choking sensation. And it wasn't about, was I ready? Or was my coaching immaculate? It wasn't anything about that. It was this concept of, I don't want to let anybody down.
Right.
Or am I ready? Like the perfectionism of it. And so I think that I want to venture to say, as a teacher, a part of this too is grading. Right? And it's looking for, okay, are you correct or are you incorrect? For me, when I wrote policy for the department, it was the same thing. And I wanted things to be perfect, and I wanted it to be a certain way before I went big or blew up.
Yeah.
And literally I was blowing up as I was watching these emails, and I was panicked because I didn't feel ready. And your point about creatives and being a business owner and not connecting those wires. Because now you've got accounting, now you've got taxes, now you've got, do I need an LLC? Or now you've got, okay, if I have a partner, do they need a 1099? Like, it's real. And I think that's where the M&M choking happens, right? You literally choke up because you don't feel ready. How does one push through that feeling and fly?
That's a great question. I mean, there is in a sense, and I don't mean this in just like a straight up way, but there is a little bit of a fake it till you make it, And I know
messy action.
And I know that there are some people who've said, "Oh, you shouldn't fake it till you make it. You should just be authentic." But
I like figure it out till you make it.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that there's if you've got kind of a baseline of skill and the resolve to figure it out, then you push forward and you do it. Because the reality is, the first time that you ever do something, you're not going to be an expert at it. There's going to be something that goes wrong. You're going to learn from it. And so I think that having that resolve to have kind of the imperfect action beats perfect inaction is huge for business owners. And we need to get comfortable. Again, this is kind of cliche, but it's true. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, because the uncomfortable is where the growth happens. It's where progress happens. It's where success actually happens, because there's always going to be something you can fix. But to just say, we've got kind of the minimum viable product. We're going to push forward and we're going to iterate. We're going to improve as we go along. We're going to get better. But then to just go and do it. And
I would say, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. As an entrepreneur, as a creator, if you are creating, I mean, just think about that for a second. The pie is always being baked. Right? There's no finished pie and then it's packaged and then you replicate you can to some extent, but by virtue of being a creator, you are creating. And I feel like January is my third full year, beginning of my third year as a full-time entrepreneur. The first year, 2023, it was messy. Had to have emergency surgery, so that took me out the game for months. 2024 was this awkward in between. I was still trying to perfect certain things. I was still trying to wait till things were perfect before I went, did it large. And this year I seem to have no fear, but also everything that I thought would have been so bad, like, I would not have replaced my corporate salary after 2 years. I didn't. I almost did, but I didn't die. So I think there's a lot to be said for the fear is bigger in your mind than the actuality of the flub, right?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, as somebody who, I'm not painfully shy, but I am a little bit on the, introverted side of things.
I heard they call us ambiverts.
I think I fit into that.
I do better in the one-on-one. Than, yes.
100%. And I enjoy being in a group of people, especially if I know that group of people.
You
but
definitely
I also need to like recharge the battery.
Yes.
Like being in that group actually drains my battery, even though I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So it's like I want it.
Yeah.
And then
then fetal position for 2 hours.
Then I need a little bit of a break. But so I think that what was the question again?
The question was this concept of you're gonna fail, but it's not gonna ever be as bad as you think.
Yes. Yeah. So when I kind of the example of that I was thinking for me was when I started networking, because I have that little bit of an introverted streak to me, the thought of going to a networking event where I didn't know anybody and like handing out business cards and trying to talk to people. And the first thing is I didn't really understand networking. I thought I had to go and sell people immediately. And when I wasn't, I kind of felt like a failure. But part of it was like this fear of, all of the unknown questions, you know, what if people don't want to talk to me? What if people don't like what I'm offering? Just all of the things. And
do you have any kind of neat tricks you do like ahead of time or during to overcome?
So the first thing I'd say is that I found that it's not as bad as I made it out to be, and kind of my brain made it out to be. And that people were actually very nice and very friendly and very curious about what I had to do. The couple of things that I kind of do, I like to listen to hype music on the way there.
Because what's your hype song?
I've got too many though. I've got a playlist.
Give me like the one that
playlist.
Mine is Macklemore, the ceiling one.
Yeah.
This is the moment. Yeah. I will do it in my car, and I'm hyped. I'm coming in and I'm hot.
So this one, I don't know if I can narrow it down to a song, but there's this artist called Zayd Wolf.
Okay.
And he produces all of this. It's kind of very
cinematic. Is it Wolf with an E?
Yes, I believe it is. And he produces all this like very cinematic but hype kind of like you can do it kind of music. And it sounds silly, but it actually like gets you in the mindset of, we're going to make this happen.
Yeah.
And should try to not listen to, doubts and fears and things like that. But then just things, I still don't consider myself to be a total expert at networking, but I have made a lot of progress. I like to try to have an others first mindset with networking and really try to focus on like getting to know other people, trying to keep my mind open for how I can help them, who I can connect them with, really just taking an interest in them and what they're up to. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is I like to talk about what I do or describe what I do in a way that is memorable and makes people ask or makes people say, tell me more. So if I just said, I'm a photographer, it's like, okay, well, if I said I'm a headshot photographer, okay, that's better. It's a little bit more specific. But when I tell people that I'm a headshot photographer and expression coach, they're like, what's that? Tell me more about that. I want to know what that is. I've never heard that before. And so it just kind of opens the door for, and it is, that's what I say on my website. I tell people when they call me and ask about what I do, it's not just photography. I'm actually coaching you on, your facial expressions and what you're doing and how that will make you look and what that communicates to people.
Yes.
By encapsulating it in that little phrase that people generally don't know what that is, it makes people want to find out more.
And I'll give you a huge plug. So Daniel was responsible. I met him last September 24. I had done a podcast with Ari Levitt, and I needed some photos done for my website. And I had some, but I wanted like a fresh batch. And my photographer was busy at the time. And she recommended you to me, and I think it was as quick as within a week. You had an opening, and I made it happen. And so even my podcast cover, that photo in the white suit, you took that. And one of the things I loved about it is you have these little sayings that you tell people. I think you told me to like, I don't know, something, either kidney, some internal body part, and I just busted out laughing. But talk to me about expression coaching, right?
Yeah.
Like in my previous business 7-8 years ago when I did personal branding and styling, it was predominantly with women, but I met a lot of husbands, right? Like when I did trunk shows and stuff. people despise photos.
Yeah.
They freeze and they look like they're being quietly electrocuted, including my husband. And how do you overcome that innate, I almost feel it's like a protection, like a defense mechanism, because photos can be so vulnerable.
Yeah.
If you catch people unawares, there's a rawness and like an authenticity. I'm getting like goosebumps because I'm picturing some of the photos I've taken of people in their natural habitat. They didn't know I was taking the photo, as opposed to when they knew and they were doing the stretched lips.
Right.
How do you, in your artistry, like get people's true essence to like come forth?
So I totally agree. I think if you ask people, do you prefer yourself, or they would say, I prefer myself in candid photos, the vast majority of people.
Yeah, for sure.
And why is that? Because you look like you. You look like your internal thought process of how you believe you look is how you look in candid photos, right?
I love that.
Genuine, authentic, you're not forcing anything. Yeah. And so you're right. As soon as they know they're in front of a camera, people change the way they behave.
The walls go up almost.
And a lot of times the walls go up. Yeah. We start getting self-conscious, all these things. And so, my business, I'm not catering primarily to actors and models who generally enjoy being in front of the camera. I'm catering to corporate professionals who may be super confident in their jobs and what they do.
And it's probably mandatory for their business.
But especially in this day and age where everything's happening online, and visibility is important. And so you got to get it done. But then how do you do it in a way that, captures, like you said, who you really are? And so many, it's got to be 80% plus of the people that reach out to me will tell me some variation of, I'm not photogenic, I'm not comfortable in front of the camera, I don't know what I'm doing. And so there's all these fears around it. Maybe they had a bad experience before and they got something that just like didn't really capture who they were, or even worse, like really put them in a bad light and they're, just made them look not great. Yeah. And so part of what I'm doing with this expression coaching is, obviously we've got great lighting and we put very flattering light on people that has, I think, like a very high-end, very Forbes magazine kind of a feel. But you still have this other puzzle piece of the expression, which underneath that is, how do you overcome those fears, those insecurities? How do you bring the walls down? And I think it really comes back to
they're comparing themselves to Tyra Banks. Smile with your eyes, right?
I think for me, it comes down to like authentically connecting with somebody, so they feel like I'm not just a guy who's going to click the button and hope it turns out okay, but I'm actually becoming a guide and a coach to help guide them through the process, to teach them about, what facial expressions convey and how we can get those. What are little tricks about how to look confident even if you don't feel confident inside. And so that's part of the expression coaching, is the teaching aspect, which I'm a teacher at heart. So it's kind of really been a cool part of my business to incorporate. But then part of that expression coaching really is just, how do you get people to bring the walls down? How do you break the ice? And one of the best ways to do that is laughter. Yes. So if you can get somebody laughing, all of a sudden, which all of a sudden, they're not thinking about what they look like. They're thinking about high-fiving my pinky toe. Right. Whatever it is, that a random thing that I said. And so it's kind of using that as a method of, just building on this genuine connection. And really communicating to them as well, at a very, foundational level. Like, I'm here to help you. This is not just I like to tell my clients, you're not going to have to like perform in front of the camera, like in terms of producing this great expression. I'm going to pull it out of you. I'm going to coach it out of you. So they can just show up as themselves. I really like that. Not worry about anything.
There, and if anybody's really nosy, StaceyLuces.com, and there are two photographers that I use Daniel, of course, and Luann Warner Prokos. And she used to also be a high school teacher.
Okay, thanks.
Which is so fun. But I guess why I bring both of you up, for me, what I enjoyed about the experience of the sessions with you guys was that it felt like that, an experience. And in her case, it was more, there was champagne, and I felt pampered. I felt taken care of, and it brought out a very feminine side of me that had been in hiding, that creative side. And I think with you, years later, I'm a little bit more edgy. I'm dabbling in entrepreneurship. I just wanted something different. And both of those still complement me. And I think it's important that when you are looking for a photographer, it's not just, and it's just my 2 cents, right? It's my podcast. I can give,
you absolutely
can give 2 cents. I believe that these photos are evocative of your inherent brand. And I always tell people your brand isn't your logo or your font. It is inherently what you represent in the world. And if your brand is equality, or your brand is empowerment, or your brand is badassery, like whatever is evocative of you in that moment, and we change. I think season after season, you become a parent, or you go through a divorce, or you have a death, like wear those expressions and wear that lived experience very proudly. And I think it's a testament to the work that the top-notch photographers do. It is an art form, because with a phone anybody can point and click. But I think evoking those experiences the way that you guys have done is super important. And I'm a huge believer that at least every decade you should go and have something big along the lines of a branding shoot or photography done, because it's magical if you have the right person who brings out the best in you, right? I think that's awesome. So talk to me about Hype Tornado. One, I love the word, but what does that have to do with confidence building, branding, and kind of all of the things that go into conceptually when you say that to someone? What are they thinking?
Yeah, so I kind of a little bit of context behind that concept. I was starting to get other photographers reaching out to me essentially for business coaching, which was like, I guess, I'm still trying to figure it out myself, but it started happening again and again.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I find is that when you teach something, you understand it better.
For sure.
Right? So
because you got to work out your own bugs.
Exactly. And then I'm teaching it and realizing, I need to improve this actually.
Yeah.
But so it was happening. And then that resulted in me thinking, well, we've got these people coming to me for business coaching. Maybe I should write a book that's kind of telling the story of my business, because I feel very blessed. It took off very quickly. And so started writing the book, and one of the things I realized as I wrote I was writing about all these different strategies that I'd used and how it had helped grow the business, and I started realizing one of the things that you need as a business is you need to be building hype around your business. Like you don't just need to have like a product and you offer it and somebody pays you for it. Like if you really want your business to take off and to kind of have the snowball effect, then you need to be working on building hype around your business and your offerings and kind of who you are as a business owner. And so it really made me dive deep into that and think about, why.
Break down hype for us, because if there are people in other parts of the world.
Yeah, so hype as in buzz, excitement, people talking about you, kind of, you talk about posts going viral on social media. Well, this is your business going viral, right? Because you've got for every client that comes in and works with you, they're going and telling 5 to 10 people. Or they're posting about it on social media and telling a lot more people. Yeah. So if you have every client telling 5 to 10 people,
and even as we post, people are commenting and curious.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So it's creating this buzz, this hype, this excitement. And I started to think more critically about, well, how do we create that? I've realized that I did create that, but what were the things that happened? And so
scientific, Daniel.
Yeah, right. So I started to think about. I had this pop into my head. We all know about the vicious cycle, which is a negative thing.
Sure.
It's a negative feedback loop. You've got two or more things that are both negative. They interact
and they amplify.
They make things
and
worse
people
and
make
worse
things
and worse.
up.
Right? So I was like, it needs to be that, but it needs to be positive. And there is a positive term. It's called a virtuous cycle.
I was going to say the virtuous cycle.
But that's kind of boring, and it's kind of clinical, and it
makes me want to put a habit on. And
right, yeah. So it's just, it was like, no, I need to like come up with my own thing. And I just started thinking about it, and I thought, hype tornado. That's what it is. And so really, as I've thought about and been working on developing this concept of hype tornado, it's really an interplay of three different things. So the first one is, I call them the environmental conditions necessary to form a hype tornado.
It's the Petri dish, yes.
Yeah, right? So the first thing that needs to happen is you need to have a killer product or service. It cannot be mediocre. If it's mediocre, if it doesn't wow people, it's never going, like the hype tornado is going to...
And sometimes you're the hype.
Yeah.
If you're a speaker or
exactly. So you can be the product or the service, but you need to make sure that it's killer, it's impeccable. Not to say that it has to be perfect, but it needs to be like really, really good. It needs to be solid.
A solid 8, according to myself.
So that's got to happen. The next thing that needs to happen is that you need to have over the top client experience. You need to have kind of a service mindset.
Stupid happy.
Yes. Everything that you can think of that would add value, make this. And then for me, like you've got all these people coming in that are afraid to get their headshots done or feeling self-conscious. How do I make it a fun experience so that all of a sudden,
it's not like going to the dentist for a root canal.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You know, people have likened it to, how do I,
Salty.
Getting headshots done is like getting your teeth pulled. So I'm like, how do we change that? And it led me to thinking about it and, changing and improving the way that my sessions work so that people are excited when they leave a session, right? So that's the second thing is you have to have over-the-top client experience. The third thing is what I'm calling a social presence that adds value. So this can be in-person networking. This can be LinkedIn. But you are working on growing and expanding your network in a way that
provides value.
Provides value. You're being a go-giver. You're looking out for others. You're wanting to see other businesses win. You're not. It's not kind of like tit for tat networking, where it's like, I will do this for you if you do this for me. I will make an introduction for you if you give a referral to me. No, it's you're great. You have an awesome product or service. I just want to introduce you to somebody. I want everybody to know what you're doing. When you have that, that's a social presence that adds value. So when you put all three of those things together, so you've got somebody that comes in for the service and you do an excellent job. And then the client experience is phenomenal, and it changed it from
it's like a trifecta.
It changed it from like a just mediocre to a bad experience to this was actually fun. And then you go into the networking. This person, if you show up at a networking event where that client is, guess what's going to happen? They're going to like say, come, I got to introduce you to like 5 people. Everybody needs to know who you are and what you do, right? And then your network is growing.
I love that.
Then what happens when you have a really start
people
to grow?
Reciprocate naturally.
Exactly.
Yes.
So then what happens as your network grows, as you meet more people, is you can then provide even more value to your clients, because when I have a client come in who said, they just open up, they talk about their business, what's going on, sometimes what their needs are. I'd be like, wait a minute, do you know, Stacey over here and what she does? I think she could really help you. Let me make that introduction. And by doing that, you just took the client experience to the next level, because not only are you helping them with this product or service, you're helping them solve a problem that you weren't even there to do in the first place. So then it just keeps going faster and faster and faster, and it plays on itself and feeds off of itself and turns into this hype tornado.
I mean, instead of the petri dish, we probably want to say playground or something.
Yeah.
So I know that as you've talked about the book and sort of the fact that you are now creating this really sexy instruction manual, right? How to do this on your own. But I love to talk about legacy. I think that it is, I think that we owe it to ourselves as we get older and as we deepen our experiences with whether it's spirituality or relationships or whatever, to get clear on what mark we want to leave on the world. And for many of us, it's our children. Like what are we role modeling? You know, do we want them to be kind? Do we want them to be little ass? Like what are we, right? What are we trying to like do in the way that we live that influences and impacts them first and foremost for some of us? But also like, what's our mark in the spaces that we're in the containers that we're in the work that we do, in the services that we provide. And I think that as we get older, that shifts, and it should. But what do you see kind of the book? Because I wrote a bestseller last year, and it does become inherently not only part of your brand, but people talk about it. They want to ask you about it. They bring it to dinner. But what do you think? And you've got 4 kids, 4 littles, right? That's a big deal. What do you want your legacy to be, not only through the book that you're writing and the people that you're helping and the impact that you want to have on the world? What do you hope to leave for them? Like, what do you want them to think of when they think of not only Dad, but Daniel?
Yeah. I mean, for one thing, I would say that, when I started my business, I just had zero clue about these foundational business things, about sales and marketing and networking, and learning them has really changed our lives as me as a person, personally and professionally, us as a family, and just kind of taken the business to heights that we never even imagined at the beginning. And so, and it kind of left me wondering, as with a background in teaching, like, why aren't we teaching these things to kids in school? Like, why can't kids in high school, like 11th, 12th
balance
grade,
a budget,
learn how to do financial stuff, learn how to network, learn how to do sales, learn about marketing, things that are foundational and that are transferable to any industry, and that really set you up for success. Even if you are just asking your boss for a raise, you're essentially in a sales conversation. So if you don't know how to do that in negotiation, So if you don't know how to do that, then you're at a loss, and you're at a disadvantage. And so, one thing that I've said it to my wife Bethany and to other people as well. When my kids graduate high school, I want them to have at least a basic understanding. Feel free to give them a shout out at some point in time. They're going to listen to this. William, Benjamin, Susanna, and Owen. I want them to have at least a basic understanding of, what does it mean to be a business owner? How do you run a business? What are the different things that help it be a success? So that, they don't have to be a business owner. They don't have to work for me or anything like that if they don't want to, but things that they can take with them along any path. And then I think just even more foundationally, things just about, faith and character and integrity, and kindness, and, just some of the things that have really, we talked about the social presence that adds value. And I think that just gets back to how we treat people, and kind of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, kind of a principle of putting others first, and not just kind of being inherently selfish in everything that we do, but looking out for other people, wanting to see other people win without even necessarily needing to get anything in return for that. And I think that, those are some pretty foundational things.
I love that. And, mind-blowing insight for anybody that's listening or watching. There's no one I've asked that question in different formats, or even myself. And whoever's listening to this, I've had my literal near-death experience when you come out of something like that, and, there are so many books and studies done with people that are either in nursing homes or at the end of their life. And it's like, what do you want to be remembered for? And it is never that I built an empire, ever, or a conglomerate or, you know, whatever. It really gets down to the nitty gritty parts of what makes us human. And I feel like the more of us that are courageous enough to follow that brand ethically, putting kindness first, putting authenticity first, like knowing that if you have an impression of someone, if they said something, like that's your impression, may not necessarily mean what happened, right? In the context of the conversation, like having that personal power, but also the discernment to step back from your own feelings and really look at the truth of the person and the humanity of them. And that should be your legacy. As I'm a person that not only treated others fairly, but I love that thing when you said do unto others, right? Like it's basic, the basic tenets of being a good human. So I really love that. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for coming out and chatting with us. This has been amazing.
Was a pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you. So 3 things we learned today that I learned. You feel free to take what you did, but I feel like your journey is such a testament to the power of taking risks and doing things in spite of being intellectually you think I'm not ready, but inherently you were. And kind of figuring that out. Embracing messy action. Always amazing. That has been, I put, you know, my Instagram was all over that because it dawned on me that I'm still working on that. And I think as an entrepreneur, as entrepreneurs, as creatives, we will never perfect it. I want that on a t-shirt. Yeah. I will never perfect it. I love our conversation about the power of personal branding and kind of bringing that genuine sense of who you are, not only to the camera and thank you, you know, that you can elicit that from people. But for those of us that are trying to put on these, I call it performative spaces where you show up and you are who you think they want to see. I think that's just a recipe for just a little bit of misery down the road.
Yeah.
And I love the hype tornado. Can't wait to read the book. Please tell us a little bit more about when that's coming out.
So the book should be going to print in April. Exciting. Should be available on Amazon, ebook, paperback, hardcover.
Is it available for pre-order yet?
Not yet, but should be in the next month or so. Definitely will be posting about that on LinkedIn.
And where can we find you?
Toptierheadshots.com for headshot work. This is the first time I'm saying this publicly, but we have my author speaker website up. Okay. It's danielwakefield.co. Okay. And we'll definitely be having book updates on that site as well. And follow me on LinkedIn. Just search for Daniel Wakefield.
Yay. So in today's conversation, hope that this resonated with you. Subscribe to Beyond the Quo for more inspiring stories. Share it with a friend. Right? Like, subscribe, give it 5 stars. And really, what I ask of you is the 3 things that we always talk about: leading courageously, living authentically, and redefining success. You know me, you have this one true life, and you get to redefine and sort of redesign this to suit you where you are. And that's your responsibility. Like, nobody's going to come in and give us a manual for that, right? So be sure to follow Daniel and all of the cool things that he's doing. And like I said, if you've already done the quo, it's time to go beyond. Talk to you next week. Thank you.